Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Since Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is just 2 days away, yes, I have a lot of reviews to get out. Here are my thoughts on Mission Impossible Dos. If you don't know what Dos is, it's 2. Learn Spanish. Starting off with my positives on Mission Impossible 2 is the returning cast from the first movie. Now you don't get everyone, which you could understand, but you do get the star of the show, Tom Cruise, back, and Ving Rhames. I am very glad Ving Rhames came back because he's a very great actor and he was one of the standouts of the first movie, and he's also, like I said, he's a great actor and I love seeing him. And Tom Cruise, you know he has to come back, which I was surprised to see he was already being a producer of this franchise, starting with the second one. Sure, he starred in the first movie, but then once the second movie came out, he was already a producer. I was like, oh wow, I was expecting that to be like on the fourth film maybe, but no. Second one. It's nice to see those two come back. They both have great chemistry. Those two are just great actors. I love both of their characters. It's just nice seeing them return. They're both great additions to the franchise, and I'm intrigued to see where else they go in the franchise. Positive is the character of Naya. Now she's played off as the love interest of this movie, where she's kind of like not she's a thief where she steals stuff and all. Part in this movie where she's talking to Tom Cruise and she goes, "I'm a bloody thief, for Christ's sake." Her character is pretty cool. She's very interesting. She's very likable. You kind of believe her when she's saying all this stuff to the villain and all that. I think she's a nice addition to the franchise. She's very likable. I really like to see where she goes throughout this movie. She does not return. I do know that for sure. But she's interesting. I do feel that she's a better love interest than in the first movie. I don't even remember the love interest name from the first movie. All I remember, she was married to the villain. That's all I remember. But in this movie, she's memorable and she's likable. You actually care for her. Like her life is at risk in this movie, and you care for her. There's a part where in this movie she puts herself in danger at towards the end of the movie. Makes you want to cry. Really though. Positive is that I really like that whole motorcycle sequence at the end of this movie where Tom Cruise is escaping the villains and all that, and he gets on a motorcycle, which is probably the standout of this movie, where he steals a motorbike and like maybe 20 minutes he's on a motorcycle just taking all these guys out. There's a part where he gets a car to stand down in front of a fucking uh truck, and then the truck goes by and just fucking squishes him like a bug. Like I was like, holy shit. But yeah, I really like the whole sequence. It's very awesome. The action during that is very cool. The stunts in this movie, you kind of get hints of like how great of a stuntman Tom Cruise really likes to be. You don't get much of it. You get a decent amount. I want to point that out. Decent amount. That whole sequence is very awesome. It's by far the standout of this movie. It's probably been the most marketed of the franchise due to the cover because it's just Tom Cruise on a motorbike and there's fire around him and all that. Very cool sequence. One of the best action sequences of the franchise so far. You haven't heard me talk about Mission Impossible 3 yet. But yeah, pretty cool. I want you guys to know that it's hot as balls in this room. I have like 3 lights turned on, and I'm wearing pants right now. I want to point that out too. And it's dark. It's hot. Like my balls are sweating right now. With my negatives is that the CGI in this movie is bad. Now I won't rant on it too much because of the year this came out. When did this come out? Like early 2000s, something like that, or yeah, it was like around 2000, 2003. I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, the CGI in this movie is pretty bad. There's a there's a part in this movie where when Tom Cruise puts on these sunglasses in the opening to find out what his mission is, and then he takes off the sunglasses and then throws them at like the camera to go to like the opening credits, and I was like, oh god, that's the CGI in this movie. Ew. Will admit there isn't too much CGI in this movie, but the CGI that is used is could be fixed. But again, for its time, I won't rant on it too much. For the time that this movie came out, for the time that the CGI was at the time, I won't rant on it too much. But the CGI that is used is not very good. Talk about the most popular thing about this movie that everyone knows of this movie for is the fucking slow motion. Literally, this whole entire movie is just slow motion. There's a part of this movie where Tom Cruise is just walking down a hallway and he goes, and I was sitting there like, do you really need that slow motion when he's just trying to walk down a hallway? And there's so much fucking slow motion in this movie. Like, Jesus Christ, is there so much? Like, it's bad. Like, it's not even like cool slow motion some point at sometimes. Like, sure, there are a few times in this movie where I thought the slow motion worked. Maybe the first few time, like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But after a while, I was just like, can you stop, please? Because I'm not liking this. It's starting to give me a seizure because of all the slow motion. No, you're just gonna keep doing it? Okay. This that's literally all this movie is, just slow motion. Slow motion. Final negative of this movie is the villain. Now, I don't hate this villain. I don't think he's one of the worst movie villains of all time, but he's not very memorable, and I never found him intimidating. Where he's a guy. I don't know if he was Irish or Australian or something like that, but he had this like weird accent and all that. But there's parts throughout this movie where I just never found him intimidating. Like the only part where you guess you could say he was intimidating when he took the guy's finger and put him like a cigar thing where they like cut it off, like cut off like the cigar bud, but he put the guy's finger in there and he like broke it in a way. Like that was the only part in this movie where I was like, "Oh God, this guy's vicious." But and I was like, "Oh God, this guy's vicious." Maybe I want to see what else he does throughout this movie. But throughout the movie, he's like, "Oh, this is your villain. Can you write him better?" Because that's not I don't find you intimidating, and he wasn't even memorable. I can't even remember his name. Like, what was it even his name? So, guys, I really enjoyed this movie for what it was. There are some enjoyment factor, but compared to the first movie and the third movie, it's a downfall of this franchise so far. But I don't hate this movie by all means. I think there is some enjoyment factor here and there, but it could be better. So I'll just say to go ahead and stream it. What do you guys think about Mission Impossible 2? Do you prefer this over the first one? Is this one of your favorite of the franchise, or is this one of your least favorites? Let me know in the comments below, and we will talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe and bell notifications so you will get notified for my latest videos. But until my next video, take care.